have an intro for this video, but that's okay because we're just gonna dive right in. But yeah, essentially, girl, this is music because I'm getting distracted. But yeah, essentially, I had an idea that I wanted to share in video form because I also know, like, on the website there's like a video section, and I was like, I had ideas about what I wanted to do there, but yeah, this is just the first one. And I don't even remember how the idea came to me, but I do know like one of my classes was definitely a big factor in giving me the idea because it introduced me to critical theory, because I had taken another class last spring semester, or winter semester they call it here, and we had delved into like theories within the field of engineering education, and like so I was exposed to like critical race theory and like other things that had like a critical lens, and also like through other classes you hear about like other critical theories, and also through other readings, but I never heard of critical theory, which is insane because like that's kind of like where they all stem from. And so it was just really eye-opening and enlightening, and when I saw it I was like, oh my god, like this is me, like this is the type of scholar that I want to be. And it just, a lot of things started coming together, but maybe that's another video for another time. But so for this one, Delulu is the Delulu. So I love the vibe of Delulu's Delulu. It's just very fun. Well, for some of us it's fun. I do genuinely believe that some people are genuinely just going through life as Delulu's Delulu, and I don't necessarily know if that's the way to go, but, or at least that's a way to go, but maybe hopefully we can arrive to that conclusion at the end of this video if I don't bounce around too much and just not make my point, which I'm trying. I have notes here. They're not the most in-depth notes, but they're still notes, and hopefully they can guide me and help me guide y'all through my thoughts to the end. But yeah, so if you haven't heard of Delulu, I feel like it's marketed as like a Gen Z thing of like, oh, like even when I put it into Google, because I was trying to get like definitions that maybe I can share, I think I did see somewhere where it's like, yeah, Gen Z slang, and I'm like, okay, but yeah, it's essentially like Delulu being like delusional, being delusional is like the solution. And I've seen like different things on social media kind of embody or even talk about being Delulu is this Lulu in different ways. So like I feel like most of the time I see it as like a parody, and people are like making fun of it, like, oh, like you think you pass by this like dude that you really find attractive, and you just you give them the stank face and you don't approach them, but like you're like, yeah, like that's my man, you know, like that's Delulu's the salute. So that's like the funny part. And then like there's the I think this is from memory, but I also think there's like a point where it's like I don't know, the manifestation peeps being like, yeah, you know, like be delusional, like because you'll get it type of thing. Yeah, so I've mainly seen those two in that space, but I think this video and what I'm trying to do is come at it from a lens of like not necessarily a parody or like even like, yeah, if you believe this, you'll get it type of thing, but it's more of like a critical lens, from like a lens of critical theory, and seeing how that can possibly intersect, and how that can bring to fruition perhaps a more agentic life. Or maybe I won't get to that last part, but you At least the critical lens. So yeah, let's dive in. So yeah, as I said, Delulu is the Delulu part basically refers to like delusional, or like delusion. And so what I did was I was like, okay, let's get definitions of these things. So, because when we say delusional, when we say someone's delusional, I also think like similarly to like Delulu, there's like a colloquial way of using it, and then there's also a more serious way, like there's a medical way. Most people aren't saying, yeah, you're delusional, like you need to go see a doctor. It's more like, oh no, this person is delusional, like they're saying things and it's like, why would you ever think like that? What happened? Like that's never gonna happen. And so yeah, but that was my definition in my head, but I'm like, okay, let me go and get like a concrete definition from my dictionary. So that's what I did. This is what is Cambridge Dictionary Online. Delusion. Something a person believes and wants to be true, and it is actually not true. Right, and I saw that they had Delulu under there, so I clicked Delulu. It says believing things that are not real or true, usually because you choose to. So I think I think that the differences of definitions kind of like get at what I was trying to say before. In terms of like Delulu, the Sulu is like the parody version where it's like, oh no, like you're choosing to, like it's for fun, basically. And it's usually not as like serious. Whereas I guess delusion can be in a more serious light. But yeah, essentially what I want to hone in there is this idea of believing something, and with the delusion is like something a person believes and wants to be true. So there's like this desire of like, why, like I want this to be real, and if you want something to be real, you can assume that the absence of that being real that you're living in is just not a circumstance, not a desirable circumstance. Like you don't want to be in that circumstance, right? So let's hold that idea somewhere in our brains, somewhere. And then Delulu, saying believing things that are not real, right, or true. And I want to hold on to these ideas of like real and true, right? Because they can seem objective, but sometimes they're not as objective as we make them seem. And so I also, I was like, why do I have the definitions of objectivity and rationality? Okay, I remember what I was on. See, I'm already bouncing. But I also looked up the definitions of objectivity and rationality just because I was like, another thing, before I had, searched up the definition of Delulu and delusion, I was like, okay, yeah, delusion, someone calling you delusional is basically saying that you are not embodying objectivity and you are not embodying rationality. Because you can ask people like, okay, if someone's delusional, would you think that they're objective, they're being objective, and they're the moment that they're being delusional, or you think they're being rational? Probably not, right? But I wanted to understand and like break it down more, the things that I was kind of like thinking about, just so I can properly articulate them and connect them. And I'm probably not doing the best here, but I'm really hoping it all comes together. Yeah, so objectivity is the act of being based on facts and not influenced by personal beliefs or feelings, okay? I mean, okay, number one, this definition, like by definition, you cannot be objective then, because the act of being based on facts and not influenced by personal beliefs or feelings, as human beings, we all have our personal beliefs and we have feelings. That's just how we are as human beings. And maybe this is another video for another time, but I do think, especially within Western society, and I'll talk about the society that I'm in, American society, there is this obsession with the idea of being objective and rational. Like, those things are ranked highly. If you are those things, you are more, it's like almost like there's a superiority that comes with it. Whereas if you're not, if someone says you're not being objective, you're not being rational, that's like someone, it feels like someone's like really trying to call you stupid. At least for me, maybe I'm just talking from my experience, but like, but the thing is, why does it feel like they're calling you stupid? Because if there were no values or value judgments aligned with objectivity and rationality, then like it wouldn't really make you feel some type of way if someone said, yeah, you're not objective or you're not being rational. But it's because that there is this value of objectivity and rationality are like gold. Like, if you are those things, you are a valuable member of the society and someone who deserves respect, someone whose words deserve to be heard. Whereas if you're not, then like, why would we even listen to you, type of thing. So I think oftentimes calling people like not being objective and not being rational are ways to essentially undermine what they share, right? Which is similar to when people call you delusional, right? So it goes back to that idea of delusional being in opposition to objectivity and rationality, which are, again, things that this society holds in high regard. And so there's I even put an example from the dictionary, I guess, using the word, I think, rationality, but it also had objectivity in there. So I was like, oh, let me put this in here. So it says, science rests on the ideals of objectivity and rationality. Or in there's a second sentence where it's like, we have to bring some rationality to the issue, right? And like, even this idea of like science resting on the ideals of objectivity and rationality is another video in itself. But yeah, like, we see it's a good thing to be objective and rational, even though it's quite impossible to not be influenced by your personal beliefs and feelings, right? Like, that's not, as a human being, you can't really do that. You're always bringing a story with you. You're always bringing your beliefs with you in how you interact with other people and how you even analyzing things that are objective, like numbers, right? So yeah. What was I gonna go from here? Okay, yeah, so, but I wanted to kind of like pivot into this idea of, oh, sorry, I didn't read the definition of rationality. Okay, rationality, the quality of being based on clear thought and reason, or of making decisions based on clear thought and reason, right? This repetition of clear thought and reason. Okay, so then my question when reading this was, who decides what clear thought and reason is, right? Because those are subjective. Someone can think, yeah, I made a decision to go to, I had $5, I made a decision to go to the ice cream shop with it because I don't know, as Pitbull and Neo said, I knew my rent was gonna be late about a week ago. I worked my ass off, but I still can't pay a dog. You know, something like that. Whereas someone is like, well, those $5 I decided to, I don't know, put it in a savings account, I don't know. But essentially, one person could look at both of those decisions and decide one is rational, one is not. One was based on clear thought and reason, and another one was just based on, I don't know, disillusion thought. I don't know. I'm trying to think of another word. Just thought that just wasn't coherent, right? That there just could have been a better thought process that yielded a more profitable ending result for the person. And another person can make a whole nother judgment on what that person believes is rational or what that person thinks is clear thought and reason. All right, so who decides what clear thought and reason is? Who decides what is objective? And who decides what is rational? Right? And this ties into Delulu and being delusional, because I think in my experience, I feel like people in my life who are more aligned with wanting to be objective and rational like that, or aspiring to that, often tell me that I'm delusional. And it's in situations where it's like, okay, like let's say in terms of like work or something, like wanting to like do one job over the other, even though like another pays more, and like maybe it's more respectable, or like wanting to get a job where, I don't know, like you're remote, and you have like a good manager, or like speaking those desires out. It's like, oh well, you're being delusional because, you know, that doesn't really exist, or like that's not how the world works, or this is just how the world, like I feel like phrases like that are often used to kind of be aligned with this idea of objectivity and rationality, and anything that goes against that is delusional, right? And less of a parody sense, but more in the sense of like devaluing like desires for better, and mind you, like these people don't really like the same things that I'm trying to avoid, the same things that I don't want to have to deal with. These people also don't like. So it's like, you don't like it either, so why is it when I share these things, like the first thought is like to call me delusional? And so this reminds me of critical theory. Right? And so critical theory is, I did a little thing there. What is that? Yeah, I'm kind of distracted, but yeah, like critical theory is like a school of thought, I would say, that, let me read my notes, I think has a lot of gold in this conversation, or what I'm trying to explain here. And essentially it aims, so if let's say you have like party A and party B, this is like kind of like how it was like explained. the thing that I read, and if I can find it, I will put it somewhere. So if you want to read it, you can go read further. But essentially it was, yeah, it gives an example of party A and party B. And party A just enjoys, you know, more benefits due to, you know, power imbalance and structures that basically feel those power imbalances, while party B gets the shorter end of the stick, right? But party A essentially is probably, they're not incentivized to actually fight against those structures that basically aid in their, you know, thriving due to those power imbalances. Whereas what often happens is party A tries to get party B to agree into submitting to the conditions that proliferate the imbalance that allows party A to enjoy a bigger share of the pie, right? And so they do that through ideology, which the chapter shares the definition of ideology in terms of critical theory, which I will read now. So it says, ideology is a form of consciousness that is used to legitimize oppression and the unequal distribution of power and surplus within a free society. Ideology is a form of consciousness bound to a particular interest or set of interests possessed by those holding power. As Agar and Baldus note, to be effective in reproducing people's conformist behaviors, ideologies must not, oh girl, I wrote this out, so it might have a typo, but ideologies must not be sheer illusion, but must in some respects correspond to reality as people experience it. Ideologies are subtle attempts to portray the present as both rational and necessary, especially given the apparent alternatives, past and present, right? And so this idea of rationality and reality comes back again, right? So what do they say? They say, yeah, it's rational and necessary, right? So again, this idea of rational being something that makes you more valuable in a society, being rational makes you more valuable, your words should be heard and listened to, and things should be done based on your word. If you're living in a society that is so focused on rationality, whatever that is, and remember, we don't even know who is defining this clear thought and clear reason, right? I don't know, might be people in power, who knows? So if you're not accepting these conditions, right, and you're called irrational, then what you're saying shouldn't even be heard. It shouldn't even be taken into account. Nothing should be done with it, right? Calling people delusional. And also, it has to correspond to reality. There's like quotation parts on reality. This goes back to the idea of, you know, for the definition of illusion, where, you know, they want it to be true, but it's not true. Believing things that are not real, which was the definition of Delulu. This reality, right? So, again, yes, we all live in a world, we see that the sky is blue. We see that it rains sometimes, and sometimes it's not blue, and it's white and cloudy in the sky. You know, we see those things. We know those to be true. But there are just certain things that aren't necessarily true. And in this chapter, they actually say, critical theory, lies on the idea of, essentially that reality is, constructed. And that, as it's constructed, there can be also a way to construct it in a way that is actually conducive to essentially being a human being. And so I say that, so for example, like, we know it's very normal in this reality for a corporate to have a 9-to-5 job, right? That's a constructed reality because we don't really have to be going to a 9-to-5 job, right? Most people go to work because they need money. They need money to survive. They need money to eat. Most of us don't want to be going to a 9-to-5. We don't want to clock in to an office and stay there for 8 hours of the day, especially if it's nice outside. Like, most people don't want to do that. There have existed realities before this time where there was no 9-to-5. And people still ate, right? And people still had places to live. Example of a constructed reality, right? And so maybe continuing on with that as an example, most of us don't really like it, right? But we still do it. Why? Yes, because we have to put food on our plates and we need a place to live, because no one wants to be on the streets. That's just humane. No one wants to live in inhumane conditions, right? Okay, we don't like it. Can we do something to change it? Like, even while we're still living in this reality, can we do something to that works towards a reality that we don't have to do this? And I think that's where this idea of delusion comes into play. Because, maybe if you say like, oh yeah, I don't want to work a 9-to-5, I want to, have my own business. You might have people talking about, well, it's hard. Are you sure you can do it? I don't think you're really understand. I feel like you're delusional in thinking that you're going to be able to make enough money to live off of your own business, due to all of the issues that you have to deal with when thinking about making a business, right? And I don't necessarily think it's wrong to caution people in terms of like, yes, this is the current reality that we're living in, and these are the obstacles, and trying to achieve this goal. But I think oftentimes what happens is it's not necessarily said in that way. It's more like, girl, that's never gonna happen. Why are you even trying? Like, that's like the message that is often sent. And I think that's dangerous because there's an agency that needs to be honed and harnessed there that it clearly isn't. And it's also like that lack of agency and just a conformity to a reality that doesn't even, you don't even like, most people don't like, party B doesn't like, right? It's like you're essentially being forced to conform to that. And so in a way it kind of, like, people in party B end up coercing other party B members to continue to conform to conditions that are not benefiting anyone in party B. Why? Because they aren't being delusional. So Delulu kind of is Delulu, right? Because it goes against being delusional. Directly goes against what is real, right? And if we're from a critical lens believing that reality is constructed, right, in terms of like oppressive conditions that we live in, then it's our right as party B to be delusional, to be in the mindset and to reflect on, yeah, I actually hate this. I don't think this is not conducive to my humanity. And it's driving me insane. I don't want to live like this. I don't think any human being should live like this. So yeah, I'm going to continue to long for and imagine a future in which this reality doesn't exist, because it shouldn't exist. But yeah, I feel like that's my point. And I really hope I was able to like tie it in. I feel like I was jumping around a lot. And I promise the moment in which I got the idea, like I feel like if maybe I sat down then, maybe it would have gone, I don't know, but we'll see. I'll probably edit it, so we'll see what comes about. I gotta learn how to do that too. But yeah, I also don't have an outro. But yeah, thanks for listening if you made it this far, because I think I did jump around a lot. And yeah, if you have any other thoughts you want to share, just, I don't know if like there will be comments under this. I'll figure it out. But if there are, you can comment. If not, you can like send a message on the main screen. If I do end up uploading this video on YouTube, then yeah, just comments. But yeah, bye.